Good evening. The date is March 1st, 2021. The time is now 7 o'clock p.m. I call to order a public hearing for Ordinance 1049 concerning amendment of City Zoning Code 205-9. An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Havre de Grace adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and Sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter for the purpose of amending City Zoning Code 205-9 to establish maximum setbacks in the National Register Historic District and prohibit front-load garages on certain streets. At this time, is anyone in the audience here this evening to speak on this ordinance for public hearing? Sir. Good evening, sir, and welcome. May we please have your name and address for the record?
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Miller. I live at 320 Lewis Street, which is in the Historic District down by the hospital. The proposed amendment to the zoning sounds like a good plan, but if you read into the rest of the ordinances that it affects, it's not going far enough, and it's creating other problems, specifically off-street parking requirements. By moving the houses forward, you take up the driveway space. Everybody's still required to have off-street parking except for the parking exempt district, which is between Bourbon Street and Otsego Street and Union Avenue and the water. That's one of the issues. The other issue is someone wants to build a house with a front porch. They're right up on the property line, so they either build a 3-foot wide porch or they have to come to Planning Commission and the Board of Appeals for a variance and cost them another $600 or $700 to get that hearing. I think the right thing to do is send this back to the committee and have some open discussions and go and look at what it affects across the board. And in saying that, reading the current city ordinance and the code, there's a lot of stuff that is out of date. There's state laws that are reflected in there, like 66B, which has been changed to the land use plan. And so there's a reference to you have to follow 66B, which doesn't exist anymore. So there's a lot of things and a lot of steps that need to be taken care of before you start passing ordinances like this. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on Ordinance 1049? Okay. Any comments from the council on Ordinance 1049? Okay, without any further comment, I now declare public hearing on Ordinance 1049 to be closed. The time is now 7:04. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time is now 7:04. I call to order a meeting of the Havre de Grace Mayor and City Council. Date is March 1st, 2021. Council, I'll do the roll call. Council President Glenn.
Here.
Councilmember Robertson. Here. Councilmember Zinner.
Here.
Councilmember Boyer.
Here.
Councilmember Ringsacker.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Thank you very much, Council. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and opening prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. If I could kindly ask everybody to remain standing Gives me great pleasure to call forward Pastor James Snodgrass of St. John Episcopal Church. It is so nice to have you here this evening. You're the
Thank
first
you.
live blessing we've had since November. So,
Seriously?
oh yes,
Wow.
we've been reading people's prayers into the record, so it's nice to have an official person do it for us now.
Yeah, we haven't had in-person worship for 2 or 3 months. It's rough. We
Well,
know.
it's wonderful to have you here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, let's take a moment in silence and remember those who have suffered, those who are suffering, and those who have died today of the coronavirus, and those who care for them. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Yesterday, the last day of February, marked the conclusion of Black History Month. A brief history of this national observance appeared in the newspaper, charting its evolution from a 1-day to 1 week to 1 month observance. We give thanks to God for those who have championed the observance of Black History Month, including Havre de Grace's own Kameh Calloway Murphy, who for over 8 years has organized an annual observance in our city and received the Governor of Maryland's Harriet Tubman Lifetime Achievement Award. A few highlights of this observance. On the 14th of February, 1897, at the initiative of Mary Church Terrell, a half-day was set aside in Washington, D.C., quote, colored schools to celebrate the birthday of Frederick Douglass, the great civil rights advocate and native son of Maryland. Students learned of his life, writings, and speeches. In February 1926, honoring the twin February birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, Dr. Carter Woodson established Negro History Week in the month of February as, quote, a way to expand the celebration of these two great men and encourage Americans to study the little-known history of an entire people. In 1969, in February, students and faculty at Kent State University celebrated the first Black History Month observance. And in February 1976, as part of the nation's bicentennial celebration, and with the strong encouragement of several African American leaders, President Gerald Ford established the national observance of Black History Month, stating, quote, in celebrating Black History Month, we take some satisfaction from the recent progress in the realization of the ideal envisioned by our nation's founders, and to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. In the words of the great spiritual leader and author, Reverend Howard Thurman, let us pray. Our Father, we turn to Thee in the quietness of prayer. It is but natural that we expose to Thee the things in us that seem most worthy and good, and that we may delight Your Spirit and bring joy to Your heart. The unworthy and the ugly things in us we almost instinctively seek to hide and cover up, that we may seem pleasing in Your sight. But deep within us we know this is not enough. We know that somehow we must be totally exposed to thee, holding back nothing, nor seeking refuge behind some protective screen. Teach us to know that your love is so whole and so healing that nothing less than all of us can rise to meet your all-encompassing care. Teach us to share with you the good and the bad in us, the ugly and the beautiful, the successes and the failures, all, everything, complete in every part. With penitence for fumblings, failures, ignorances, and sin, and with thanksgiving for directness, successes, knowledge, and rightness, we lay bare all that we are to your love and your understanding. O God our Father, in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Father Snodgrass, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're going to go to the item number 5 on the agenda, approval of minutes. This is the City Council meeting minutes of February 16th, 2021. Council, to have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Zinner, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. Question or comments on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. City Council minutes of February 16, 2021 are approved 6-0 in the affirmative. Item number 6, comments from citizens on agenda items. This is the part of this evening's agenda. If you wish to speak on an item that is on the agenda, you'll be recognized at this moment. If you're here this evening to speak on any other matter of city business, we have a section towards the end of the agenda called Comments from Citizens. So I do have one, before I call on the audience at large, I'll call on anyone who pre-filled out a paper. I do have one pre-filled out paper, and that's Mr. Charlie Mike. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the council meeting. May I have your name and address for the record, please?
Surely. Charles A. Mike, 1413 Superior Street, Havre, Grace.
Welcome.
Thank you. On your proposed budget amendment tonight, my wife and I are opposed to that budget amendment for Susquehanna Hose Company for purchasing this $30,000, 100 underwater tool. We feel the city supports the fire department very generously every year. Just proof of that is that beautiful $600,000 boat that sits down at the marina. And we also, my family and I, we also support them with our yearly donations, buying their sandwiches or chicken dinners when you have the sale, and raffle tickets, although I won't be buying an AR-15 raffle ticket. But, you know, they are supported very well by the city here. And if they really think they need this tool, I think they need to work it out of their own budget instead of coming to the city for more money. You know, the amount you give them now is very, as I said before, is very generous. I've also gone ahead and I know a lot of I'm friends with very many of the hose company members and acquaintances with others, and I've gone ahead and talked to quite a few of them about this, and not one of them knew anything about it. And one of them that has a good bit of experience in the water rescue and dive team wasn't really sure of it. I just don't think, you know, if they feel that they have this need for this, they should work it out of their budget. That $30,100 could, if it's coming out of the marina surplus fund, I mean, that could be used on a number of different areas down there that are needed. You know, you're going to be needing the new fuel tanks, you know, dock repairs, upgraded restrooms. I'd really like to see investigation into a halfway decent floating pier downtown that which would generate so much business downtown with transient boats, because transient boats just aren't going to come to Havre de Grace anymore and dock down to City Yacht Basin and walk downtown, but that's a different subject. But there are plenty of other areas that money could be used, so I think you really need to take a strong look on that before you just turn over that money to the hose company. I do support the hose company very well. I know they do a great job. I'm not, disparaging them in any way, except that this money should stay where it's at. And if I can also make another comment on a different subject, it's not particularly on the agenda, it's on the minutes of the agenda. So your last meeting, this is directed to Mr. Martin, Councilman Martin, on the water and sewer report. I read the report, very fine report. I was a little disappointed to see that you had a recommendation in there for water rate increases possibly coming up. Again, I just don't think that's necessary. The reason you gave in there was employees and chemicals and chemical increases. Well, first of all, according to your budget, and whenever Mr. DeHorty gives a report on the budget, everything in Fund 9 seems to be fine, coming along pretty good. And looking at your budget, your employee expenses are pretty steady going across. Matter of fact, for 2 years, they were going down, and the chemical expenses have been steady going across. So I don't think those two reasons should be for any increase. And if you do feel that you have to increase that fund, I would highly recommend that it would only be the water distribution only and not on the sewer collection. The sewer collection fund is so high, it's 930. I mean, that is so much above anybody else in this area. And increasing that just really raises the bill on a family. I mean, we're a family of two. We're paying $300 a quarter, and we watch our water very closely. And every other week, I check my meter to make sure it's not leaking somewhere. And I just think, we really, with the bond issue went through last year, that was supposed to take some of the pressure off, the water fund. And I think.
Well, just want to let you know, Mr. Mike, it's a recommendation only, and
I understand that.
the budget I will be handing council sometime in April will not have a rate increase in it. We will not be raising rates. Just want to let you know that.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening. Anyone on council wishes to speak on an agenda item? Mr. Seipel, did we have any comments from citizens that were sent to us electronically?
No, sir, no comments for agenda items.
Okay, any comments from council? Okay. Thank you. We're going to go to item number 7, appointments. This evening, there are no appointments. Item number 8, recognitions. This evening, there are no recognitions. Item number 9, proclamations. This evening, there are no proclamations. Item number 10, presentations. There are no presentations. Item 11, resolutions. There are no resolutions this evening. Item 12, ordinances. There are no laws to pass. And number 13, old business. We have no old business, which takes us to new business. Like how this just keeps moving on like this? Okay. All right. So with new business, we have a budget amendment 2021-09, slip tax user fund for Susquehanna Hose Company. Councilmember Robertson.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve budget amendment 2021-09.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Robertson. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Martin. Questions or comments on the budget amendment? Councilmember Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do want to just take a second to talk about it a little bit. So the Susquehanna Hose Company, did submit a request for this underwater cutter and underwater spreader. And the funding for this would come from fund number 7, which is slip user fees. That's the revenue source. And that is a fee that each slip in the city of Havre de Grace has to pay with the specific purpose of going back to water safety. So anything that improves water safety or emergency uses, i.e. the Susquehanna Hose Company, would fall under that specific use. So it's not coming out of the general fund. We couldn't just take that money and redo the bathrooms. That would have to come out of Fund 10 or the general fund, and there would be some kind of reimbursement. But because this is specific for the purpose of, so far, the use is for Susquehanna Hose Company or for fire prevention at the slips and at the docks. That's why I'm in favor of this amendment personally. And as an aside, I would like to mention that, this past year has been pretty tough on volunteer organizations. I do recognize that we've already approved an additional amount for the Susquehanna Hose Company, but I would like to remind folks that, most volunteer organizations haven't had the opportunity to fundraise, and while some organizations like the Arts Collective or something, they're also not performing as much, so they're really not spending as much money into a deficit, or their work really isn't being inhibited by the amount of money that they're raising right now. Susquehanna Hose Company hasn't stopped working. So I'm in favor of supporting them if and when we can, and in this particular circumstance, I think it's a win because that money is specifically for water emergencies. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Robertson. Councilmember Martin.
Mr. Mayor, council, citizens, I too am in support of this amendment and moving the money. If that tool helps save one life in its entire usage, the cost is worth the expense. And it's coming from the boaters who, that's what that fee was for. So, understand that it may never have to be used, and if it's not, it's like a spare tire in your car. I hope you never need it, but when you do, you're going to want to have it. So this tool, I hope it's never needed, but if it does help to save one life, that cost is well worth it. That's my comments for tonight on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin. Any other further questions or comments? Okay, council, I'm going to get a roll call vote on this if you don't mind. Councilmember Zinner?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsager?
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson? Yes. Council President Glenn?
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, Budget Amendment 2021-09 is approved and adopted by council. Councilmember Robertson, would you mind just reading the quick account numbers into the record, please?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. And I think I mentioned the wrong funding source for anything that has to be done at the Marina. The Marina Fund, I believe, is Fund 8. It's not Fund 10. I said Fund 10, but
I know what you meant. Yeah,
I mean Fund 8.
Fund 8.
We got 1 through like 11 now, I think, so excuse me, guys. All right, Mr. Mayor, in the from column, account number 01-0001-49-00, fund transfers, slip users, Fund 7, $30,100. In the to column, account number 01-1131-6501, additional Susquehanna Hose Company contributions, $30,100.
Mr. Doherty, are all the numbers matching up? Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Councilmember Robertson, thanks for reading the numbers into the record. Item B, Mr. Seipold.
Well, good evening, Mayor, and good evening, Council. I have two special events for your consideration for this evening. The first is a perennial event for us. It's the Havre Grace Farmers Market. This event is sponsored by the Community Projects of Havre Grace. This is a weekly event occurring every Saturday. They plan to hold the event at our current location, which is the Community Pavilion and the parking area at Frank J. Hutchins Memorial Park. If you could envision, the tent would be up and the entire parking area would be used for the farmers market to continue to facilitate social distancing and other COVID practices that we had in this past year. They would begin on May 1st and continue until December 18th. Again, that is one modification in previous years. They want to extend their market about 4 additional weeks. That's kind of exciting for maybe some Christmas purchases. I know we don't talk about Christmas. We're still getting out of winter. But bear with me. Nothing like planning ahead. They wish to begin setup at 7:30 a.m. The market would operate from 8:30 a.m. until noon, with breakdown occurring immediately thereafter. The merchants would be out by 1 o'clock. So the market wants to continue on the 8:30 early start. Again, that's been a very positive. We've had a lot of positive feedback from vendors and, more importantly, from participants. So I'm kind of excited for that. The farmers request 3 or 4 trash receptacles and, of course, 2 recycling containers. Alcohol is sold at the market and given away in the form of samples, very small samples. However, no alcohol is being served. They anticipate attendance to be 500 to 600 weekly patrons. This, as you know, is a rain or shine series event. Their COVID plan is in keeping with the CDC guidelines, as we saw practiced last year, with social distancing, wearing masks, hand sanitizers at each vendor's table. They chalk every 6 feet out in front of their tables to promote social distancing, and of course they have appropriate signage as you enter the market area. They also encourage pre-order and prepay, which certainly saves people time, and knowing that their order will be complete, especially if you're trying to get bread. Sheesh. Public Works expense is $7,097.50. There is no police expense, as they will oversee with normal patrols. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seipel. Council, I have a motion to approve this year's farmers market.
So moved.
I heard the council president and seconded by Councilmember Ringsacher. Motion by the council president, seconded by Councilmember Ringsacher. Questions or comments on the farmers market? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Farmers market, every Saturday from May 1st to December 18th, 2021, 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Hutchins Park, is approved by council, 6-0 in the affirmative. Next event, Mr. Seipel.
The second event this evening for your consideration is the Women's Suffragist event. This event is sponsored by the City of Havre, Grace. It's a one-day event originating at the Cultural Arts Center at the Opera House and culminating at Millard E. Tidings Memorial Park, more specifically, the gazebo at Millard E. Tidings Memorial Park. The date for this event is Saturday, March 27th. So to give you a brief scenario, a synopsis of what's going on, at 10 a.m., participants will meet at the Cultural Center at the Opera House. At noon, they begin a march down Union Avenue towards Tidings Park. After arriving at the park, event organizers will have a presentation made from the park gazebo at 1 o'clock. This is in keeping in similar fashion to commemorate the march and speeches given by women suffragists like Elizabeth Forbes in 1915. A plaque will then be unveiled, marking the spot and time of this historic event. The event will end at 2:30, with cleanup beginning immediately following its conclusion. The sponsors are requesting traffic control to permit their participants to have a safe march from the Opera House to the park. PD will be providing escort service via a rolling roadblock type fashion. Additionally, the city will be providing chairs and a sound system, as well as installation of the plaque. There will be some reserved parking areas on Commerce Street to ensure guest speakers and attendees with mobility constraints have easy access to the gazebo. There is no rain date. Should it be deemed inhospitable to host the march and speakers at the gazebo, the event will move indoors to the Opera House. The anticipated attendance is 200. If we move inside to the Opera House, we understand that attendance number will have to be reduced in keeping in CDC guidelines and state mandates on COVID practice. Public work expense is costs are $322.50. Expenses for PD is $339. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seipel. Council, do I have a motion to approve the women's suffragist event for March 27th?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Boyer, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. Questions or comments on the event? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The women's suffragist event and dedication, March 27, 2021, at Tidings Park is approved, 6-0 in the affirmative. Thank you very much, Council. Thank you, Mr. Seipel. And we're going to go to Director's Report, item number 15. Mr. Seipel, we're going to come right back to you. Director of Administration.
Thanks so much, Mayor, and good evening, Council, and again, citizens. It's beginning to feel a little bit more like normal as we start to see special events and meeting announcements coming forth. So, Puxatawney Phil may have seen his shadow, and winter may seem like 6 more weeks, but I think in the hearts of people in Havre Grace, spring is just around the corner. On Friday, March 12th, the Havre Grace Arts Collective presents Iona. It's an evening of Celtic song and dance. Iona's music is a unique acoustic wave of traditional music of Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Cornwall, Brittany, otherwise known as France, the Isle of Man, and Galicia, which was Spain, as well as their transplants in America. Blending songs, dance, tunes into a rich and stunning tapestry, their style is outstanding in an arena where these traditions seldom intertwine. The show time is at 7 p.m., and tickets can be purchased online at their website, hdgoperahouse.org. On Saturday, March 13th, take a guided nature history walk on the North Park Trail. It is an easy walk of 1.5 miles in 90 minutes on the North Park. This pleasant and enlightening trail walk is free to the public and will occur rain or shine. Sturdy footwear is recommended. The trail walk will disembark from the Lock House promptly at 10 a.m. For those new to the city or to the area, the Lock House is located at 817 Canestio Street in Havre Grace. The Havre Grace Alliance invites everyone to join them and experience the charm of Havre Grace in all her winter splendor by attending their annual Ice Festival, Fairy Tales and Fantasy, on Saturday, March 13th from 3 to 8, and Sunday, March 14th from 12 to 4. It's a festival of all things fanciful and fantastical in beautiful downtown Havre Grace. There will be lots of ice sculptures, a chili cook-off, live radio broadcasts, photo ops galore, kids stations, games, contests, fire pits, ice carving demonstrations, a live mini unicorn, I can't wait to ride that, food trucks, costume characters, a hot toddy bar, artisans, bands, restaurant specials, and store promotions. Social distancing and wearing a mask are required practices for attending this event. Again, the times are Saturday, March 13th from 3 to 8, and Sunday, March 14th from noon until 4. This is a free outdoor event. And then on Sunday, March 14th, daylight saving times begins. Woo-hoo! Don't forget to move your clocks forward. Remember to spring forward. And if you missed any of the information I just spoke of, and for a complete calendar of events of our city and participating venues, please visit our websites at explorehavregrace.com, hdgoperahouse.org, and of course, havregracemd.gov. And that will conclude my rantings for this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seipel. Appreciate the updates. We're going to call on Mr. Shane Grimm, our Director of Planning. Good evening, Mr. Grimm. It's good to see you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's always tough to follow Mr. Seipol's exciting comments, so I'll do the best I can. But first I want to let you know, I wanted to circle around with you all and let you know that the Planning Commission did meet last week on Monday to discuss Bully Rock Parcel F, and as you know, we had 2 meetings on the project because there were some questions, some outstanding questions that were left to be answered, and after lots of discussion, we did answer all those questions, and the plan was approved for 102 single-family dwellings on Parcel F. And I just wanted to thank the citizens of Bully Rock They were all very respectful and sent very good questions, and in fact, there was 3 or 4 individuals who had some very pointed questions that led us in different directions to answer those questions. So I really give kudos to them for being engaged in a public process and being a part of that and asking very good questions, and the meeting went really well. And again, thanks to, I know I probably say it every time, but thanks to Volney, Ford and Company for really handling themselves very well in the virtual format. I know all are excited to return to in-person meetings, and we will have our first in-person meeting in some time on March 22nd, when we will review Parcel K in Bully Rock. And Parcel K was originally intended to be condominiums, but at this time, they're proposing 49 townhouse units that I would assume would look similar to those across the street from that parcel. So lots of stuff going on in Bully Rock, and I also anticipate several more parcels on the resident side that will be brought before the Planning Commission in the next couple of weeks. So we'll be very busy on that front. Also wanted to let you know, recently we've been working with Harford County and Aberdeen and the Baltimore Metropolitan Commission on a project to do a study, which is essentially a multimodal and land use study of the Route 40 corridor. And Diane Clare is managing that project, and I'm assisting her with that as well. But she put together a little something that I just wanted to read briefly, just to kind of give you an idea what's occurring with that. So the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, for the fiscal year 22-23 budget and work plan, otherwise known as the Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, has been released for public comment and can be viewed on their website. This work program includes a multimodal transportation study entitled US 40 Land Use and Transportation Study, which can be seen in Appendix B, Focus Areas, page 105 and 106 of the document. The goal of this study is to look long range to reimagine US 40 as a corridor that supports mixed-use development with transit and planned bike improvements, spanning multiple jurisdictions. It includes a description of the project, its anticipated cost, as well as noting the planned participants, such as the City of Aberdeen and Havre de Grace, Harford County, MDOT, and advisory participants like the Lower Susquehanna Heritage Greenway, East Coast Greenway, Will Mapco, and Baltimore County for long-range corridor planning. The study has come out of a year-long coordination effort with Harford County Department of Planning and Zoning and the BMC. It's very appropriate that this high-level study is performed under the BMC for future implementation and long-term capital funding. This is not a 5-year plan, it is more like a 30-year plan, and you have to be in it for the long haul. Unified Planning Work Program is the 2-year work program for transportation planning in the Baltimore metropolitan region, which includes Baltimore City and Baltimore, Carroll, Howard, Anne Arundel, Queen Anne's, and Harford counties and their municipalities. This is a federal requirement that details projects, studies, and other activities to be completed by the BRTB members and staff of the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. BRTP is the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board. The BMC staff works for this board for long-term regional transportation planning. Public comments or letters of support for this project are due by Thursday, March 11th at comments at baltometro.org. And so if anybody's interested in going there and supporting our planning efforts, that would be greatly appreciated. I do want to say, as part of this project, is taking a look at how mixed-use development can help to redevelop and revitalize the corridor, but we're already ahead of the curve there because we did that, and we're seeing the fruits of our labor on that with the Blenheim Run project, which is nearing the start of that project, and we're very excited to have that with the first phase of 51 units. So lots of stuff going on in planning world. This, what I just spoke about, dovetails nicely with our efforts on the comprehensive plan update, which Diane Clare is also managing, and she's well underway in starting to prepare that document. And we're looking forward to getting your input on that, as well as the Planning Commission and other stakeholders in the community. And I apologize for not being as exciting, Mr. Seipolt, but thank you again for allowing me to give my comments. So.
Not a problem, Mr. Grimm. Just as important. Any questions for Mr. Grimm?
Good.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Appreciate the update. All good stuff happening.
Yes, sir.
Item C, Ms. Erica Quisenberry Sturgill, who is our Director of Economic Development, isn't able to be here this evening, but she does have a prepared statement that Mr. Seipolt will read into the record.
Thank you, Mayor. Erica couldn't be here tonight, but she is still working very diligently, and so she's here in spirit. The anticipated Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development Main Street funds for the State Economic Recovery Initiative, otherwise known as SERI, have been awarded to the Havre Grace Alliance, and Julie Runke, as Main Street Coordinator, has begun distribution of simplified grant request forms to all eligible businesses in the state-designated Havre Grace Main Street District. Several of these simplified forms have already been completed and returned to the Alliance. In addition, she is working on a gift card promotional program as well, and we can expect to see a rollout of that in the coming weeks. Additionally, they continue to work with multiple parties interested in relocating their businesses to Havre de Grace, or expanding here or starting a business in Havre de Grace, from a tourism boating concept business to restaurateurs, tech and defense-oriented offices, to manufacturers and a distribution facility, as well as mom-and-pop style shops making boutique products. Those who may have available commercial or industrial space or office space available within the city of Havre de Grace city limits are encouraged to contact the Office of Economic Development so we can update available listings due to the recent influx of requests. So Havre de Grace continues to be a hot spot, and people are coming, not just residences, but businesses alike. And
Yes,
that's all
yes,
I have on the economic front this evening.
That was good news. Thank you very much for sharing, Mr. Seipold, and I appreciate Ms. Sturgill for getting that together for us. Thank you. We're going to call forward our Director of Finance, Mr. George Doherty. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Doing well, Mr. Mayor, Council, good evening, citizens. I'm glad to be back in a more populous venue.
Absolutely.
It feels a little more like home now. Okay, the current, first, thank you for the passage of the budget amendment. I'm sure it'll, I know the host company was anxious to hear the results of that, and I know it's going to be, it was done for the right reasons, and it's a good call. So thank you for that. The general fund. The general fund is currently sitting at just over $5.7 million, which is a $1.8 million ahead of our budget schedule. Of course, we started the year at $1.9 million ahead of schedule, as I've reported every period, and that doesn't change. Our salaries are running at $840,000 below budget. Most of that is, again, as I've said several times, we're being very careful, and I think the word is deliberate in our rehiring process. And we're just, because of the reduced schedule of activity so far with the COVID, we've just been able to work with less, and we're realizing those savings. Unfortunately, income tax receipts are running about $625,000 behind schedule. But our real property is sitting at about $118,000 over what our original budget estimates were. Our highway user fee still, we expect it to be behind schedule, and again, that's based on the SHA estimates. Fund 9, the balance sits at just under $290,000 for the year, which is a slight decrease, $19,000 year to date. That's not unexpected because the February billing cycle is the smallest of the 3 cycles, and so we usually take a dip and then we come back up in the next month, and so I fully expect that the fund will be up for the year when I report again in April, not next period, but the one after. Our operating profit so far has been $1.8 million. Add to that capital fees we've collected of a little over $1.65 million. And to date, on capital projects and debt service, we've spent $3.5 million. And that rolls to the $19,200 decrease. The Marina Fund sits at just under $1.1 million. And it has increased $270,000 for the year. And as a comparison, last year the increase as of this date was just under $220,000. So we're running about $50,000 ahead of schedule, and that's to do with the increased marina slip fees, and we're starting to see a bump in ramp fees because we really haven't started the heavy expenditure because the boating season is just getting ready to begin. But as of right now, we're looking strong. And that's the financial report on the 3 major funds, sir. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Horty, Council? Councilmember Boyer?
Yes, ma'am.
So, we are all kind of expecting that the income receipts are most likely going to be down this year. When will we have a better idea of if it is in fact down, or
Probably,
how much down will it be
probably not until next year, next fiscal year.
next fiscal year?
Because it's all dependent, a lot of the corporations and stuff don't pay by the April 15th, they have their own years. And so there's enough of that in this town to make a difference,
Okay.
in this city, excuse me, to make a difference. So, I mean, we'll have a sense, but I always leave room for surprises when it comes to income taxes.
So continuing to be cautious,
Absolutely.
the right thing to do. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Horty, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Have a great evening, sir. Next, I'd like to call forward Mr. Tim Whitty, the Director of Public Works for City Havre de Grace. Good evening, Mr. Whitty.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A couple things today, this evening. First is that the paving for Phase 4 will be completed starting March 8th, so all the ruts that are, and patching work that's out there now on the roads, we're going to start repairing that, hopefully with the weather stays warm and the temperatures keep rising. Contractor plans to start on March 8th. We've met with him, Joe Conway and myself met with him last week. We outlined, BG&E's as usual being very generous with us and helping us with at least 50% of the roads. Several of the roads, they've opted to just, based on just the size of them, that they'd opt to just pave the whole road themselves, which was real nice. And so we've taken some of that money, and obviously, as I said before, we're putting it towards curb repairs. So I know people have been patient, and a little bit with the riding over it and the rough ride. BG&E's, that's Phase 4, is planning on starting that, as I said, March 8th and completing that work. March 5th, this Friday, the bids will be due for the water line to Havre de Grace to Aberdeen. We've been answering a couple questions. Pretty much we've got about 5 people bidding on the project, and they've been fluttering us with a few questions. We've been answering those, and it seems like everything's moving forward, and should be able to get that bids in on Friday, and then go through them, and then award the contract sometime later this month. Bridget Cardy informed us, Stephanie of a potential grants for work on the lock house, and so we're taking her up on it to enhance the landscaping. Actually, with the money we're going to use, try to take down a lot of the woody vegetation that's along the shoreline of the pond, plant back some of the vegetation with native plants along the shoreline, and as well as within different areas of the lock house grounds. But the main goal is to try to the embankment of that pond, kind of make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and put some landscaping in there and kind of dress it up a little bit. So that bid has that grant application has to be submitted by this Thursday. So Stephanie's working on that one. The Old Bay Lane project, water line plans are 100% complete. I've written the request for proposal for construction, but I'm holding off. I was going to combine both just to make it a little bit more favorable, try to get a better price and more bid and more contractors on the project. I'm lumping the Old Bay Lane water line with the 2 water line projects at Green and Wilson. And the Green plans, I had to make a slight adjustment, requested a slight adjustment with the alignment. It was done I sent it to her, the contractor last week, or the engineer, and she's gonna have that to me this week, and I'll start finishing up the request for proposal and get that advertised. Sewer projects are finishing up. I should have that this week as well, at 100% drawings to kind of finalize and get that moving towards request for proposal construction. And then finally, the marina plans. I'm actually reviewing the specs right now, specifications for the project now. I've reviewed the plans are ready to go, and I'm going through the specifications this week. I should have that back, and then we'll be getting that out for request for proposal for construction as well for the tank and and dispenser replacement and fuel line replacement. Any questions?
All good stuff, Mr. Whitty. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Whitty? Okay, well, it's all welcome news, especially the paving, so.
Yes, yeah, we're getting that done, so it's, I really do appreciate, we have a really good working relationship with BG&E, and they have, I can just say they're very generous in helping us out, so it's been good.
It's a
working
very good
relationship.
relationship. Thank you, Mr.
All
Whitty.
right, thank you.
You betcha. I'd like to call forward the Chief of the Police, Chief Walter. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Just a couple of things to talk about. First thing, I just want to remind folks again about leaving their valuables in their vehicles. Typically, we see in our city people that leave valuables in their vehicles overnight and then they get broken into. However, the county is seeing a slight uptick. We haven't, fortunately, but the county is seeing a slight uptick of cars that are being broken into while people are in grocery stores or when they're at athletic clubs or just out shopping, you know, that type of thing. They leave their purses or laptops or that type of thing, and people are actually starting to break into those vehicles. So again, I just want to remind everybody so we don't see that here in our city, just to, you know, again, put purses in trunks of vehicles or laptops or, you know, or just don't take them with you if you don't have to. So that's just a reminder in that regard. The other thing I want to talk about just very briefly is the School Resource Officer Program. Mayor, I know that you are familiar with several pieces of legislation down in Annapolis that would actually change the look of the School Resource Officer Program throughout the entire state. I'm in opposition to those pieces of legislation because not only will it change us, but it will really have a huge impact on our School Resource Officer Program. We've had our program for about 20 years. I know when I got here, we already had a school resource officer program. We had one school resource officer to hit all four schools. And then slowly we started increasing them. And then finally in 2012, unfortunately after the Newtown, Connecticut active shooter, the council members at that time and the mayor at that time made the determination that it was very, very important to them to add school resource officers in all four of our schools. So that's what we did. Because the one thing that we know is that our schools are very vital to our community. It's a big part of the community of here in Havre Grace. So we wanted to make sure that our schools are as safe as they possibly can be. Now, when school resource officer programs really started, a lot of it dealt with enforcement and safety and security, but over the years they have actually evolved into much more than that. We are involved with everything with the kids from mentoring, rapport building, helping them with after-school activities, helping them with studying. Some of the other examples of our school resource officers, this is, I guess it's kind of not so great for me, but when now Sergeant's pet was Corporal Pets, and he was at the high school, Mr. Reynolds at the time made an announcement that Corporal Pets was going to be promoted to Sergeant Pets and that he would be transferred out of the high school. And I immediately got a rounding boo because the kids like Dan Pets so much. And then a couple years after that, I experienced the same thing with Corporal Bert Brown. He got, you know, a huge round of applause. And that's tough coming from high school kids. Because we all know that have kids that they're really tough. They're very, very critical. And to see that coming from high school kids says a whole lot about our school resource officers personally as well as our program. And unfortunately, with the way that many of these bills are written, it will pretty much eliminate the school resource officer program. The school resource officers will not be allowed in the schools unless they're called upon, where they wear their equipment and how they wear it. That's all going to change if in fact they do that. So like I said, over the years, we've built positive relationships, not only with the children, but with the parents, the school administrators. The kids come up to us on First Fridays. They seek us out on First Fridays to say hello to us. That's from the smallest to the ones that are graduating. We get kids that have graduated that see the school resource officers, bring their now, new husband or wife or that type of thing, just to talk to them, to say hello. So those are the kinds of things that we don't want to lose. Out of the school resource officer program, we have everything now from the Explorers. The summer safety camp is huge. We've got a waiting list for kids to go to our summer safety camp. So those are the types of things. It's not just enforcement and safety and security. That's a part of it, but it's not all of it. So I would really encourage people to get in touch with their elected officials, Mary Ann Lasante, Steve Johnson, Mr. Griffith, Senator Castley, and ask them to oppose the bills. And not only are they under like police reform bills, but they're also under education and health bills as well. So I'll get off my soapbox, but this is something that I'm very, very passionate about. I think our school resource officers have had a huge impact on our children and on our communities. And I think that's what we want. We want them to have dialogues with police officers. We want them to share their experiences and have police officers truly help them. And we do that. And I would hate to see that change. I would just hate to see that change. So I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now. But I felt it had to be said because I know there's a lot of hearings going on about the different bills. So that would be it.
And people should reach out to the chairman of the committees.
That's correct.
As well.
That is correct. That is correct. That is very, very important. I know here in the city of Havre de Grace, we've been dealing with a lot of these pieces of legislation since the summertime. I give Adam, our liaison with Annapolis, a lot of credit. He has done a lot of work looking at all of the pieces of legislation, the fiscal impact. Mr. DeHorty's looked at the fiscal impact a lot of these pieces of legislation. But yes, the chair people of those hearings or those committees is equally as important. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Mr. Glenn.
I just want to let you know I sent an email again today to all those key legislators.
Oh, thank you.
And if anybody wants to know the value of the SRO programs, just go to First Fridays.
Yes.
Because those kids flock to those SROs
Yeah.
in droves, and it's just amazing. And somebody said that, we don't need disciplinarians in schools, and the fact is, they're not disciplinarians. They're mentors.
Yeah. That's not
They're
our
mentors, and
job.
they build this
Right.
positive relationship that I think this country needs, so that we respect law enforcement. And it's just amazing. And like you said, the summer camp programs, they're lined up.
Right.
And I was there the night that Dan Petz got told that he was being promoted. And watching those kids, they were devastated. So,
They were. I was trying doing a low crawl out of this.
My last message to our legislators was to do away with the SRO program is an opportunity lost.
It is.
And hopefully they do the right thing. And
Yeah.
I got my fingers crossed. And I even sent a note to Dan today. I says, if by some chance you could grab one of those kids that you mentored, take them with you.
Yeah.
So have them speak, because I've always said that it's tough for legislators to look a kid in the eye and tell them no.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
So-
You're absolutely right.
But thank you for all you do to all the SROs, and we got it right. And
Yeah, they're
unfortunately, hopefully
phenomenal
that they
people.
understand that.
Yeah, we've been very, very lucky to have really good school resource officers. Jared Coleman, I think we spotlighted something that he had done, surprising one of the children at the elementary school with a bicycle, because he knew that was the only way the child could get to school. He had it refurbished, had it there for him.
Remember that.
Bert Brown, a student at the high school, didn't have a father to take her to a debutante ball. So he had asked me if that was okay. I said, it's okay with me. Is it okay with your wife? Is it okay with the young lady's parent, mother? It was. He paid his own money to get dancing lessons. He spent his own money for a limousine. I mean, it was wonderful. And then this young lady had a great memory, and so did Bert. So yeah, that's how important it is. We're not just the police in the school. We're in the school community, and that's important.
Right.
That's it. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Robertson.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up, Chief. I'm a big fan of the school resource officers. And I think, that's really the core of community policing, that's where it starts. Do you happen to have the bills handy, or the bill numbers? I did talk to Mary Ann.
1089.
1089 is the one that's being heard tomorrow, but that's under the health and education. It's not, you're not going to see it under any kind of like police bill.
Yeah.
It is under like the health and education. So it's being attacked by several different, the SRO program is being attacked by several different means.
Yeah, it's, when I talked to Delegates Lasante and Johnson about it, it seemed like it was more of a state funding
Correct.
thing. I didn't realize that they were like disallowing school resource officers from even being in the schools.
Yeah, yeah. But for us, I mean, we fund our own SROs.
I thought so.
So, which is wonderful. But nonetheless, if they change the state law as to where we can be and that type of thing, that still changes it.
Yeah.
It changes the whole dynamic. Yes, sir. Good question.
Right, so if the state takes away the funding, it doesn't affect us because we've always paid for our officers in Havre de Grace, but if they actually don't allow them at all,
Correct.
that affects us.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
like one of the bills has them that they can stay outside and they can be buzzed in if there's an emergency or that type of thing. If they need to use the restroom, then what's the point of the SRO program? It just seems to me that in this day and age, when we want conversation, when we want our children to know about things and to get a different perspective, we're going to legislate against that. That to me kind of seems counterproductive. We want them to see police officers, and we don't want them to be afraid to approach an officer and just have a conversation, not even if they need help. We want them if they need help, but just to have a conversation. So, and we've seen them grow up, and it's been wonderful. It's been absolutely wonderful. We try to recruit a lot of them to go into law enforcement. They all like to go to the fire service. No. But yeah, like our school, our summer safety camp, we talk to them about stewardship, the community. We do everything from the green team. We explain that, the hose company, the ambulance corps. So we try to make it so they understand about the community as a whole, so that they know what their responsibility is to our community.
Councilman Robertson, do you have anything else to say?
No, sir, but I do want to just add, my son loves Officer Adams, so.
Everybody loves Officer Adams. She's awesome.
Councilmember Zinner.
Thank you. What I wanted to say was that when I read this, I guess it was several weeks ago, I had also sent off letters, but 2 years ago, the legislature passed a bill to fund SROs in all of the schools.
In
the
2018,
state.
yes, ma'am.
Right, as well as behavioral health professionals.
Correct.
And this was after the Parkland shooting. So we seem to react positively in some ways when we hear about these tragedies in the schools, and then it's a 360-degree turnaround to try to pull this money back 2 years later. And I remember when I heard about the millions of dollars that they had approved to fund both the SROs and the behavioral health professionals, I was really excited about that program because I thought it was the best time to really maybe spot some trouble from a mental health perspective, or even a child that has depression or is unhappy at home or things like that. So instead of acting out, somebody's there to intercede. So I would really hope that the legislature really rethinks this, goes back to their original plan that they had approved and passed 2 years ago, and not only fund the SROs, but also the behavioral health professionals, because I just think that this is a poor reaction to maybe some events or whatever that seem to get attention because they're negative, as opposed to all of the positive impact that the SROs have, and I think also behavioral health professionals. And I think those individuals also would really welcome being a part of the team with an SRO to help the children as much as possible.
And that's the key, being a team. Because right now, and that's what our nation is calling for, a team effort. And it doesn't seem like, it just seems like some of these pieces of legislation are counterintuitive to that. But what you're right, what you said is exactly right. It should be a team effort. So.
Well, Chief, I'm gonna hold you, since you brought it up, I'm gonna keep you here one more minute. So yes, 1089. So House Bill 1089 in Annapolis, if it passes, it would not allow police officers in our schools with arrest authority. But what I want to do is I want to thank you because I remember, were you on council when we passed the resolution in 2012?
Yeah, we were at a Christmas event where we
Yes.
said, we got together, you, me, and Randy.
Right, me, you, and Randy, that's right. So it was Council President Glenn, myself, and Councilmember Craig. After the Newtown shooting, you know, we went and talked to Mayor Doherty, but you had written the book on it. You had this operating procedure
Correct.
in the event, like we were to do this with all our schools. I remember, I'll never forget that. You were ready to roll on day one. It wasn't like we had to figure out how we're going about doing this. So I want to commend you on that. It was a successful program because immediately we were able to address what we thought was a need in our elementary school and our middle school. But I want to say, as a teacher of 22 years at probably one of the largest middle schools in Hartford County, there's 1,200 kids in Aberdeen Middle School. There's like half that at Havre Middle School. It wasn't until several years later that we received a school resource officer in Aberdeen Middle School when the city of Aberdeen finally allocated one. And you know, again, it's how you write the book. It's the training of the officer, but also it's the instinct of the chief to put the right person in the right school.
That is key. It's very important.
That's huge.
Yes.
That's huge. And you know, and obviously in our schools, you've always done a good job. In the school I'm in, our SRO officer's been there for 5 years. I can't tell you what a successful program it is for 1,200 kids. Just to wag them down and say, hey, you know, we're going over, I teach U.S. history, of course, but, you know, we're talking about the Bill of Rights, and he comes in and talks to the kids about, you know, the Fourth Amendment. Kids love that amendment. Anyways, but to have an officer in your classroom, the kids will never run out of questions for the police officer. Like, the positive things I've seen from it, and I one time remarked that many, many decades ago, a lot of people thought, you know, how could we ever afford to put nurses in every school? I mean, the idea was a foreign idea. I mean, we'll never be able to do that. Well, in today's age, I often think, well, how can we afford not to have an officer in every school? Because I also remember having a conversation with you, Chief, years ago when we were justifying funding for all of our schools. So let's say you have 600 kids at Havre Grace Middle School. And I said to you, Chief, I said, if we had an event at Tidings Park with 600 people, would you put an officer there? And you said, absolutely. I'd have a couple officers walking through. Any event at Tidings Park that has 600 people.
Correct.
And here we have 600 children and 60 adults, completely unguarded, unprotected. And it's not always the shooter you're worrying about. There's other hazards and harms that can come
Correct.
in the way of people. So, you know, and one of the things I pride myself on as I get older is holding my comments and not saying things until I can try to put myself in other people's shoes and think about other people's perspectives. But I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't know what people are thinking when they say an officer in school is a pipeline to jail. I mean, what are they trying to raise their kids to be criminals? I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Go ahead and quote me, paper. I mean, it's like, I mean, that's what they're calling it. That's their justification. It's a pipeline to prison. Like, why would you say that? I've seen it done so much good to keep kids out of prison. You know, because the officers aren't there to arrest kids. The officers are there to help kids and to make them make better decisions and, you know, to avoid those situations. So, again, the city will be testifying in opposition to House Bill 1089 on Wednesday. We're actually going to speak against it. So, but again, I just want to, I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to bring it up under my comments, but I really just wanted to thank you, Chief, because, you know, I know you don't like taking credit for things you do, but you were ready to roll on day one 8 years ago when we rolled this program out. And it's been very successful. And again, Havre Grace led the way.
They did, and I want to use one of Dave Glenn's, Council President Glenn's terms. Everybody said it was a knee-jerk reaction. I took so much heat down, you know, up in Bel Air,
Oh, yeah.
that type of thing. But I'm like, hey, this is what we think is necessary for the city of Havre Grace at this moment, and that's what we're going to do.
Yep.
This
And
is
it's-
absolutely what we are going to do.
It's funny you bring that up because there was an individual that said just that, a knee-jerk reaction. And what I did was I invited that individual to the summer camp graduation. And when that individual walked in there and he saw the graduation and what those kids did during the summer camp, they were blown away. And they looked at me and says, "Oh my God, Havre Grace got it right." You know, and so you say knee-jerk reaction all you want, but when you see the end of what we put in place, I mean, you guys nailed it. As a Little League coach, you hit a grand slam.
Well, there you go. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, folks. Thank you.
Chief, thank you for your time.
No problem, sir.
Have a good evening. We're going to move on to item 16, comments from the mayor's office. I got a few things here. I wanted to circle back to Mr. Whitty mentioned a few minutes ago about paving hopefully should be beginning around March 8th. I want to thank my citizens for their patience. I know the last few months throughout the winter times, the roads in certain parts of the city of Havre de Grace have been pretty bumpy. My office, my email account has received a lot of complaints about people's front ends being misaligned because of bad roads and things like that. I just want you to know, not all roads are ours. I'm kidding, I'm sorry. Well, it's true. I mean, I do have to tell people, and usually the worst roads are the ones we don't own. You know, Union Avenue is a state road. Otsego Street is a state road. Revolution's a state road. Superior Street, you know, coming down the hill under the bridge, that's a state road. You know, those roads are pretty bad. You know, and there's some city roads, of course, that have been chewed up pretty bad, and we try to keep them as patched as we can. But BGE came to town, which they had the right to do. They're a public utility, and they're replacing a lot of new gas lines. And I've mentioned this before, that it's been and Mr. Whitty said it tonight, it's a really good relationship we have with Baltimore Gas and Electric, because a lot of times when they're digging up these trenches to replace gas lines, many times they'll see some of our infrastructure. They'll see some of our pipes or valves that have been in the road since the 50s or 70s, and they'll actually say, just pick up a quick phone call, you know, "Hey, Tim, you got a valve here that's leaking on the corner of this street and this street," and we can run down and replace that valve in about 20 minutes. That's about $500 instead of digging up the street when it actually does break. It costs us between $5,000 to $8,000. And so when Mr. Whitty says we have a good relationship with Baltimore Gas Electric, that's what we mean. Like, it's not, you know, guys punching the clock and just throwing a bunch of asphalt and crush and run in. It's a good working relationship, which on the other hand, we also let them stage their equipment on city property, which is the Water Street property across from the old Price of Seafood. So it's a good working relationship, and also they are very generous with their paving. They really don't have to pave what they dig up, but a lot of times they will pave from curb to the middle of the road. And if the road's really bad, like historically a bad road, we jump in on their contract and pave the other side of the road, which is why we've been kind of holding our budget paving a little bit, because we knew there was going to be a lot of paving coming in the spring. If they go across the road, they'll pave the whole road. So it's going to work out. I'm just, basically what I'm saying is it's a good relationship. I apologize to the citizens for the bad road conditions over the winter time. The good news is a lot of parts of our city has received better infrastructure through gas lines. We've repaired a lot of, you know, valves and some pipes that, you know, on their dime that they dug up the road. And so just ask everybody to have a little more patience. I know people are going to start getting mad now, because now they're going to have all the flag crews back in town, because there's going to be a massive amount of paving. But the good news is, I like to report, there's going to be a massive amount of paving happening in the city. So it's on the other hand, there's some streets that have really looked good. Green Street or Franklin Street's been looking good. So some streets have been completely repaved, and we're going to get a lot of paving done between now and probably May. So again, just a little bit of patience, and it'll work out. And I also know how bad, and I get emails about this all the time, I'm very, very aware how bad the roads are under the railroad bridge at Union and Otsego, where David Craig Park is and Gene Roberts. Again, it's not the city of Havre de Grace. I wish we could. We'd get our hands smacked if we tried to pave it. You know, we're on them all the time about paving, and then when you have the winter time comes and the plows come and they knock up all the patches off. And so, you know, we're very aware how bad the roads are, and it's a bad reflection upon the city. It's a bad reflection upon people visiting our city from out of town. They come into this beautiful entranceway. You know, you go under this beautiful historic bridge and you see the water, and it's like, you know, with all the holes there. And so we're working on that as well. So we're aware of it. You know, we're trying to get the state to come in and help us out. It'd be nice if they just did a complete mill and repave, but they just come in and patch a lot. You know, just maybe we should tell them there's gas lines under there, and they should just dig it up. So, I have a message for council. I talked to the council president the other day about this, and I asked the council president if I could wait and tell you. And this is for the citizens as well. Historically, or I should say traditionally, the city's operating budget, preliminary budget, which is the job of the mayor's office to produce and then hand to council, is given out the second meeting of March every year. And ever since I've been, you know, when I was on council under Mayor Daugherty, when I've been mayor, that always is the case. We give you guys the budget the second meeting of March. However, I will be giving the preliminary budget out the second meeting in April. And give me a minute to tell you why. There are several bills that have traction in Annapolis that could alter this year's budget, big time. Like, I'm not talking like one small amendment. I'm talking like, you know, go try to find it kind of changes to your budget. There is a, you know, law enforcement body camera law, House Bill 187. Some law enforcement agencies voluntarily have cameras. At the moment, the city of Havre de Grace does not use body cameras yet. That would cost the city $50,000 annually to maintain and operate body cameras. Senate Bill 486 and House Bill 581, the labor employment standards during emergency declaration would require $3 more an hour for any worker who has to work, government worker who has to work during a state of emergency. If they make it retroactive, going back to when COVID started, that would cost the city of Havre de Grace $900,000, almost $1 million. That's in the pipeline. Could pass, maybe not. Maybe it'd be retroactive, maybe not. So we have to see. There are other bills, once again, this comes up every year. There's delegates that want to do away with the emissions and amusement tax. Primarily, we get $88,000 a year in receipts. That's primarily from Bully Rock Golf Course. If that passes, we'll be $88,000 short. I'll have to find that in my budget. So those are just a few. And we'll still be in complete compliance with the budget because the charter says as long as I give the council the preliminary budget and we hold a public budget work session prior to the second meeting in May. So you're still getting a month before that time period. So a lot of things in limbo right now. If any one of these pass, then the book I give you on the second meeting of March isn't worth the papers printed on. It would have to be completely redone. And then at that point, since it's out, it would all have to be done by amendments. So I would rather, I mean, you know, just hang tight and release the budget if you guys have no objections to that. So
We
if you
got
want
it.
to talk to anyone about, you know, Mr. DeHorty about the budget or anything, feel free if you want to discuss things. If you want to know what is tentatively being proposed, that's fine. I mean, there's just, remember, when I hand you that budget, it's yours. And so any change that has to come from that then becomes your responsibility. So I'd rather have it taken care of first, if that makes sense. Okay?
Absolutely.
So again, I mean, it's sad that, you know, the folks we elect to go down to Annapolis, you have to like hold your breath and pucker up because like you don't know I mean, it shouldn't feel that way. You know, you should actually be proud of the people you send to Annapolis, be like, hey, you're down there fighting for us, and nobody's fighting for us. Actually, the things they're doing are detrimental to us. But I'll tell you this, I've sat in a lot of committee meetings or public hearings where I've had to testify on behalf of the city, usually in opposition to things. And you can tell immediately the people down in Annapolis who served at a local government level and those who didn't. Because the people who served at a local government level asked the right questions. Those who never served any other level of government except state, they just think things will magically happen and all the local government's going to pay for it. And they don't realize this is where the rubber meets the road. This is the most services you get, but it's the least amount of money you pay in taxes. It's your roads, it's your water, it's your sewer, it's your first aid responders, it's your sidewalks, your curbs, snowplow removal, trash removal. Could go on. So Annapolis is not doing us any favors. And so hopefully there'll be enough people down in Annapolis who do understand the impact of the 157 municipalities in the state of Maryland, and they'll stop some of these things from happening, because some of these things have good intentions, but they have bad consequences. If I have to come up with $900,000, where does that come from? It's like 6 cents on the tax rate. I mean, I can take a knife to the budget, and what fund's that going to be? You know, I mean, sorry. We're going to do raise taxes? We'd have to. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be, you know, crass about it, but I think about these things all the time. Every single day I walk in my office. And the first thing I say is, any news on this House bill? Any news on this House bill? Because these things are really going to impact us. Now let's talk about something fun. All right, so as Mr. Seipold said earlier, the Ice Festival is March 13th and 14th. I heard it's going to be sunny and 75. Kidding. Nah, hopefully we'll have like one of those little March, chilly weather days, and maybe 50 degrees. But nah, no matter what, those sculptures, they last all weekend, no matter what the temperature is. They're pretty big. Ever have a block of ice in your cooler? It lasts forever. So the ice, man, we're very excited about the Ice Festival. It's an all-outdoor event. So we feel we're ready for it. And also, a couple years ago, we wanted to have a Defenders Day weekend. You know, Defenders Day is a recognition we signed by resolution with the Havre Grace Historic Preservation Commission. Defenders Day is May 3rd. It's the day that the anniversary of the British invasion of the city of Havre Grace, where John O'Neill defended the city against the British. So we recognize May 3rd every year as Defenders Day, and we usually recognize the first weekend in Havre Grace as Defenders Day weekend. And so this year, on a Saturday, well, 2 years ago we tried to have an event, a festival, and it got rained out. Last year, COVID happened, and we were under a lockdown. So this year, I'm just telling you right now to hold the date, because we haven't done an event application yet, but so hold the date for Saturday, May 1st. We'd like to do something at the Lighthouse grounds at Concord Point Park with just some food trucks and maybe some music, some bands, just a day to be outside in fresh air. If the COVID metrics continue to get better like they are, I mean, this is something we believe we can have. It's not an outdoor event, it's an outdoor event. So just save the date, May 1st. So we're slowly, for the last year we've been playing defense, and now we feel like we can pivot and maybe play a little offense now, maybe try to slowly get back to life. I always feel that the city of Havre Grace has tried to navigate these waters, this global pandemic, as best as we could. We never turned our nose at COVID and just kept everything open, but on the other hand, we weren't scared and shut everything down either in Havre Grace. We took everything on a case-by-case basis, and we're very pragmatic about everything. Okay, the promenade, what can we do with the promenade? Okay, the park, we can leave the park open. Let's do this. All right, we'll modify this. We'll have to cancel this. So we took everything one at a time. And so, if you're sitting at home thinking, hey, we might be doing too much too fast, maybe right, we're going to watch the numbers. But we're also positioning ourselves in the event, if this downward trend with the COVID numbers continues to go down, then We feel that a moderate-sized event that's completely outdoors in the sunshine, that's optional to attend, would be something perhaps people would look forward to in the month of May, 2 months from now. So I just want to let everyone know that we're actually planning on emerging from this COVID situation as optimistically as we can and cautiously. COVID numbers continue to trend down. The city of Havre is doing really well. I had the numbers right here. Today we're 835, but it's taken us over a week. We're averaging like 1 a day. So it's a lot better than, 8 a day, 10 a day that we had back in the holiday season. So Havre de Grace we went a couple days without any cases at all. So Havre de Grace is looking good. Hartford County is averaging 25, maybe 30 a day. So we'll see where we go with this. And we all know schools are reopening today. March 1st, the elementary schools reopened to a partial opening. And the secondary schools will be opening at 25% on March 15th if your child is in middle school or high school. And Superintendent Bolson addressed teachers this afternoon on a Zoom chat and said that April 7th, secondary schools will be going back full-time. So with the option of parents who still want to keep their kids virtual, they can. But full-time meaning 4 days a week. You can if you want to go to school, you can go to school 4 days a week, not just 1 day a week. So there's some other stuff that's not that important. I've talked enough. I'm sure the council members have things to say too. But at the next council meeting, it was mentioned, one more thing, women's suffrage, big deal to me. At the next council meeting, we may have Dr. Amy Rosencrans in the council to give a presentation on the Elizabeth Forbes marker that's going to be dedicated at Tidings Park next to the gazebo. It's a William Pomeroy marker. William Pomeroy is the foundation that makes those big, beautiful markers. The Lafayette one that was dedicated in November is a William Pomeroy marker. This one's beautiful. It's actually white with pink outline on it for women's suffrage. And so I invited Dr. Rosencrans in here. I hope she can make it to give a presentation, and maybe we'll do an unveiling of it before we plant it permanently down at Tidings Park gazebo. And I know that the Cultural Arts Center is planning a whole big weekend of informational lectures and movies and things like that to deal with the centennial of the Women's Suffrage Amendment, which was last year, but we're acting like it's this year. COVID. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. And I'm going to go to Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, Council. March 22nd, we do have a Planning Commission meeting, which was previously spoken about by Mr. Grimm. Mr. Seipolt mentioned daylight savings time's coming up. That's also the day that you change the batteries in your smoke detector. I know I need to change mine because that's how I know dinner's ready. So I do the cooking. I mean, it's not my wife, it's me, believe me. A lot of bacon in my house. So I want to thank Marianne Lasani very much, Delegate Marianne Lasani, for withdrawing House Bill 911, which I spoke about last time, the flats body booting bill. She agreed that there were a few things that were undesirable in there that we wanted to work on, and I will be working with her at her convenience to hopefully come up with an amicable resolution. I spoke with a few different waterfowling groups about that. A lot of people didn't want the change, but most people I talked to weren't from here. So I do see the merit in possibly, I advocate for like a small closed season just for body booting on the flats, so we can still preserve the heritage and still allow people to use public land or public waterways out there on the water. And right now, baseball registration's open. Baseball and softball, but they're doing it all virtually online now. So you go to havredegracelittleLeague.org/registration. And you can fill out all the paperwork there, and usually before when you go in and register, you'd have to bring all your paperwork and your address stuff. The coaches are going to handle that later. They want you to come in, do the registration now, pay online, do everything else, and they'll also be selling these custom-made masks for Havre Grace Little League. So if you got a kid out there who wants to play, or if you want to volunteer, havredegracelittleLeague.org/registration. And with that, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Ringsager. Good evening, Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, people in the audience. It's so great to see you. it's great to have people back in the city hall, and slowly, little by little, life is getting back to normal again. We will have a street and traffic safety committee meeting on the 22nd of March. It'll be a Zoom meeting. You'll be able to get the information from the city website. It'll be from 6 to 7 p.m. I am absolutely looking forward to the ICE Festival, and absolutely the suffragist and the women's history events that are going on. It's great to uncover history. Amy is finding things left and right, and it's just really exciting to see how things are coming up. And it's sorrowful at the same time, because the women who were actively involved just didn't die that long ago. In many ways, or their family members or their children. It's sad to see little pieces of the history being lost, and all the work she has to do to recover it through grandchildren or great-grandchildren. And I want to wish everyone a happy St. David's Day on behalf of the 20. I'm sure Carolyn's going to say a little bit more too. And I counted, it's 19 days till spring. So thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Boyer. Good evening, Councilmember Zinner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There we go. So it's great to see folks in the audience again. I was trying to update the list on the various commission members, and I had written an email to one of the members and asked him to confirm a date that he was appointed to the commission. And he sent me a picture, and the picture was a full dais of everyone, including the directors. No one had masks on. It was obviously over a year ago. And it just looked so different when you sit up here today, and it's been like this for the past year. So it was almost unrecognizable when you just look to see all these people. It seems so crowded, and we're so used to this. So it's great starting to come back a little bit. So I appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to mention is every month is a month. Like February was Black History Month, March is the Women's Month. The Historic Preservation Commission is looking forward to May, because that's Historic Preservation Month, and they're working on hopefully some plans to highlight our properties that have been awarded historic preservation awards over the past 20 years, and maybe have a walking tour advertised so that people can come and just walk past these houses, but obviously let the homeowners know. And they wouldn't be knocking on the doors to go inside, but just at least as a courtesy to see if they wanted to be part of that tour. But that's a little ways off, and we just started the planning stages. And the Historic Preservation Commission, again, will be meeting via Zoom in the second week of March, second Tuesday of March. And I think that's all I have for this evening. So I just want to thank everyone, and happy St. David's Day. And to our friends over in Mumbles, and I hope they had an enjoyable dinner and enjoyed the day. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Zinner. Appreciate it. That's right, it is St. David's Day over in Wales.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Good evening, Councilmember Robertson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, city staff, ladies and gentlemen here and at home. A couple things put out. First and foremost, I want to thank the Arts Collective for their virtual Mardi Gras. It was a great event. The food could not have been better. The $35 was worth it for just the food alone. So congratulations to them. Way to make lemonade out of lemons. Next is the Budget and Finance Committee meeting is on for tomorrow at 5:30. That's March 2nd here in council chambers. Youth Commission will be meeting online March 4th. That's this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. Virtual meeting. Folks can tune into that via YouTube. Let's see. March 13th from 5 to 8 p.m. is the American Legion's St. Patrick's Day dinner. That is open to the public event. Tickets are not necessary. You can just come and get your corned beef and cabbage and potatoes and ham and all that good stuff. $14.75 a plate. Again, that's March 13th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the American Legion in Havre de Grace. Also taking place at the American Legion in Havre de Grace on the 6th of March and the 27th of March from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The American Legion Riders will be collecting black trash bags full of men's, women's, children's used clothes, wallets, ties, socks, backpacks, gloves, blankets, etc. Again, March 6th and March 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you have, some spring cleaning to do, go ahead and get that done between now and March 6th or March 27th, and stop by the Legion from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. to drop off those gently used clothing items, blankets, gloves, backpacks, etc. What it is it's a fundraiser where we collect the bags, take them to this place to donate them, drop them off. They pay by the pound. So, you want to get rid of some stuff, bring it to the American Legion. The American Legion can make some money off your old stuff, and you'll be supporting some great causes at the same time. Mr. Mayor, I believe that is it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councilmember Robertson. Thank you for comments. Good evening, Councilmember Martin.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, citizens. Jason, you stole all my thunder. That's great. So I will have no comments tonight.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you, Councilmember Robertson. Councilmember Martin.
Cornhole.
All right. Council President Glenn, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Mr. Mayor, as you said earlier, the students at the elementary school levels started back to in-person learning 2 days a week. What a huge step moving forward. As a grandfather that's trying to help his grandson with virtual learning, I could in no way replace the value that a teacher brings to the classroom. And the students are undoubtedly going to be the benefactors of going back to school and getting that personalized instruction that's so valuable to them. And I want to personally just take this opportunity to thank all the teachers, to include you, Mr. Mayor, for all you do.
Thanks, CP.
This also opens the door for spring sports. So I got to tell you, I'm excited. I can't wait for those magical Warrior Proud moments coming forward, this spring. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say that my thoughts and prayers go out to the Ripken family as Miss Vi passed away the day before her 83rd birthday. And for those that know Miss Vi, know she was a charter member of the Harford County Boys and Girls Club. She was their ambassador. She served on their board for like 21 years. And in addition, she was very active, engaged in the Maryland Special Olympics. And I can just say, going forward, she, without a doubt, is going to be sorely missed. So again, my thoughts and prayers go out to the Ripken family. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Council President, for your comments. We're going to move on to item 18, which is comments from citizens. Any citizen in the audience wish to speak on any other non-agenda related item of business for the city? All right. Mr. Seipold, do we have any submitted requests from citizens?
Just so happens I do, Mayor. I have one.
Okay.
This comment is from Mr. Bart Brandon, 150 Giles Street in Havre de Grace. Now that the high school has been demolished, I believe that the city should reclaim the 100 block of North Adams Street that was being used as the parking area at the rear of the school. The street is still shown on the Maryland real property map. It would be helpful to have another north-south through street.
Thank you, Mr. Seipold. We'll look into that. Thank you.
I like the idea.
Yeah. Good. That was a good comment. That was a good citizen comment right there.
Thanks, Mr. Brennan.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it ties into the parking lot there. Mr. Miller, you want to come up?
Yeah. I cannot four.
Yes, sir, Mr. Miller.
Jim Miller again. In reference to the last comment, I kind of do like amateur history stuff, and Adams Street, where the parking lot is, was never deeded to the city. That's always been part of that property there. So it's not a city street, never was, unless the city works out a deal with Harford County to take it back.
Okay, all right, interesting. Well, yeah, we'll actually, well, I mean, we'll look into it. I mean, it's a head start right there. I appreciate your historical knowledge there, Mr. Miller. Thank you.
Well, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Helpful to know where we need to go.
I mean, yeah, it's helpful to know where to start from. Hey, that was a good citizen comment. Thanks, Mr. Bart Brandon. Okay, any comments from the council before we wrap it up? I just want to thank the citizens. I want to thank citizens for being in the audience tonight. You know, we've been doing this since June or November without any citizens. I'm starting to feel like those conspiracy people that think the moon landing was filmed in a studio. But anyway, but thank you very much for being here. I encourage citizen participation. Come on down. Even though we're socially distanced, we still have room for more people. With that said, may I have a motion for, yes, sir.
So move.
The starting of the filing for candidacy tomorrow for the city positions, 8 o'clock it starts. So it's not a bad idea. If you're interested in running, you can start your filing.
Almost forgot that. Thank you very much, Councilmember Martin. Very good. Thank you. All right. Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Anybody have a second?
Second. I forgot we were even in a meeting.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to adjourn carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Time is now 8:42. Thank you, everybody.